Now, the global pandemic is changing many things. The workplace is one of them in more ways than previously believed. More professionals are working from home. Some companies are experimenting now with the idea of a 4-day work week. In Spain and Canada, the 4-day week has been introduced, and it is believed the system could improve productivity, but also the general well-being of workers. So is this something that could work in a South African context? Well, employee experience specialist Andy Golding joins us now via our video link. She's in Johannesburg this morning. Andy, great to have you with us on the show, and I think an issue perhaps very, very close to those of us who work Monday to Friday, very, very close to our hearts. How do you reckon, what do you reckon will be the biggest, let's start here, stumbling block in implementing a 4-day work week in a context like ours?
So there could potentially be multiple stumbling blocks, but I think the best place to start is it's very easy as a leader of a business to say, but if you can do all of the work in 4 days, surely you just don't have enough work to do. And I think we need to take a couple of steps back and say, well, what is one of the biggest benefits of a 4-day work week? And when the 4-day work week was first experimented with in a documented process, in a research process, had happened in New Zealand in 2018, and Andrew Barnes, the guy behind the study, was very aware that long hours and forcing productivity on people was taking a really big toll on their mental health.
Yeah.
And the 4-day work week, they found to really have a positive impact on sustaining people, helping them rejuvenate their mental health. And I think the stumbling block that a lot of companies are going to run into going, but if you can do it all in 4 days, surely you don't have enough work. What we could really benefit from is thinking, well, are we paying people to come in, do exceptional work, put out exceptional output, great quality work, or are we paying people to feed the clock? What are we looking for from our employees? And I think that mindset shift may be the biggest potential stumbling block.
Do you reckon that shift is taking place more now, perhaps, given the year that we've had under lockdown? And I want to talk specifically about our South African context, where, a lot of people were forced to work from home. Do you reckon that shift is taking place, as you've just described it, in terms of, I want your level of expertise and what you bring to the company. This is the work that we need done. It doesn't matter, actually, how long it takes for you to get it done.
I do think that shift is starting to take place. And in a lot of ways, as devastating as the pandemic has been, I think it's really slingshotted a lot of companies forward in terms of their thinking about what are we looking for from people. I think everybody in their own way, shape, or form is dealing with a lot of mental sludge. Everybody is taking digital overload, massive strain from this new world of work that we've been thrust into. And I do think you're spot on that a lot of companies are starting to realize that we're looking for maximum output. We're looking for your mental skills.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a really good way to get that from people.
Yeah. And also we're looking for our employees to have we're looking to invest in their overall well-being and their mental well-being. And if this is a way of doing that, it'll ultimately benefit the company as well.
Absolutely. Like the bottom line is people are either being switched on and grown in their work environment, or they're being switched off and depleted. Switched off and depleted individuals cannot perform at maximum capacity. You lose access to their best thinking, their highest levels of contribution. So if giving people an extra pause, an extra punctuation mark in their week, which is something I think we've lost hugely with this work from home, our whole world is in one context of our house. I think if people can be switched on and grown by that extra day, that day for family, rest, relaxation, mental rejuvenation, you would start to get massive, massive exponential benefit in terms of their output, the access to their best thinking, their contribution, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The benefits for individual employees are pretty clear. The issue of overall well-being, perhaps spending more time for the family. But what are the benefits? And I want to take the discussion in terms of countrywide benefits, because what does that mean to have a workforce that is productive, but is also very focused on health and well-being, and is able to use a 3-day rest period to do the kinds of things that perhaps we're not able to do working Monday to Friday, working the kinds of hours that people around the country do work?
I think that's a really interesting question, and it would be fascinating to have longitudinal data to look at countries. So Spain, for example, who are about to implement this in a countrywide, it's coming down from government. It'll be interesting to see when that data does come out. But I can hypothesize that some of what you'll start to see, especially related to stress-related illnesses, you'd start to see healthier populations, because I do think that stress-related illnesses are a huge cause of obesity, unhealthy individuals, unhealthy family structures. If you consider that one of the massive benefits of a 4-day work week is it really levels out the gender gap in the workplace. Mothers don't need to necessarily take so much time off or extra time off to caregive, but also fathers now get to have more time with their children. So suddenly you have a generation of children who are raised in a more well-rounded family setting. They have more time with their parents.
Yeah.
And the knock-on effects of that, I think it could potentially be incredible.
I mean, it's something that would be very short-sighted to just not even think of it as an option for your business, because it does potentially, and as you say, we don't have the research to back it up, but we can sort of hypothesize about it and say, in terms of the pressure on our healthcare system, if you talk about those lifestyle diseases associated with stress, the benefits to family structures, the benefits to children having parents home, potentially more than they do at the moment. Great benefits aside from having a long weekend every weekend.
Totally. Look, I mean, from a company perspective as well, when Microsoft in Japan trialed a 4-day work week, productivity went up by about 70%,
sure,
which is an unbelievable increase for less time worked. And I think maybe it's just an important caveat to note that when we talk about a 4-day work week, we're not talking about cutting people's pay and benefits because they're working less time. Because again, it's not about feeding the clock. It's about creating environments where employees are set up for success to deliver their highest levels of output.
Yeah. So how do we get to a point where we're having this as a serious option for our country? Right now, I suppose it's about individual companies perhaps trying it out and having a look at how it affects their bottom lines.
Then that's exactly it. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all mold for all companies. I would suggest the German company Auen, what they tried, they implemented it in January of this. Into this, at midday every Friday, we want people to log off so you can ease into the weekend. And they used that as a trial period.
Yeah.
They were testing to see how does this work. It worked really well, so they eventually phased into a 4-day week. So they didn't just click their fingers and suddenly we were a 4-day week. They phased into it. And I would also say companies can trial it with different groups of employees. And there may be times like month-end, financial year-end, where people do need to be in 5 days a week, but swings and roundabouts. I think the best thing, you have to do this with your employees. This can't be something that is forced onto them. Work with them to figure out, how do we trial this? How do we, how do we iterate? Let's try this. If it doesn't work, we'll try something different. Work with people to figure out how might your company be able to shift to a 4-day work week.
Yeah. Andy, from what you know about how corporate South Africa does operate, do you reckon that this kind of idea will take a while to gain momentum, because we're so focused on, as you say, feeding the clock? You need to punch in and punch out. I want you at the office for these particular hours. Do you think it's going to be quite a hurdle to climb to get there and change that mindset? Or has the past year of COVID-19 and finding these different ways of working, has that perhaps changed all of our mindsets around how the world of work operates?
I definitely think that COVID and people being forced to work from home, go remote, has forced a mindset change. So I think that that's a massive benefit. But what I think it will come down to is companies that default to trust, companies that default to trusting their employees to get the job done, to do their best work. It'll be a lot easier for them to wrap their heads around shifting to a 4-day work week. Companies that default to distrust, default to thinking that employees need to be babied, watched, they need to be micromanaged. Those are the companies that are going to struggle with this shift. So I think it's going to really, at the end of the day, come down to that trust default, whether companies will make this shift or can wrap their heads around making this shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Companies that default to trust. That's a great way of putting it. Andy Golding, thanks very much for coming to the AM report once again. It's always great chatting to you. She is an employee experience specialist. And as we talk about, the issues around a new world of work in the wake of the last year that we've had of COVID-19 and the ongoing challenges we're facing in the midst of the pandemic, a 4-day work week gaining momentum in other parts of the world. Could it